Have you ever wondered where the television signal you are watching is coming from?
Welcome to True North.
Good evening and welcome to Maine Watch.
Welcome to Maine Public's From the Vault. From Made in Maine to Woods and Waters, Down East humor to traditional music, Maine Public Television has brought you countless stories about the people, places, and events taking place in Maine in the past 60 years. We will dive into the vaults for our anniversary year and find some nuggets from the past, some shows not seen in years. This episode will feature a series of clips from Woods and Waters with Bud Leavitt. Now, first aired on Maine Public in 1979, the series was hosted by Ralph Bud Leavitt, largely considered the preeminent sportsman in the state at the time. As you'll see in this episode, Bud covers fishing, hunting, and the outdoors, both in the studio and in the wild, and with an expert touch and uncanny understanding of Maine's outdoor traditions.
I love to go a-wandering along the mountain track, and as I go I love to sing my knapsack on my back. Bud Leavitt, Bud Leavitt,
Woods and Waters with your host, Bud Leavitt.
I suppose I could start this program this evening by reading from the baseball encyclopedia. I'm not going to do that. No, Fenway by Peter Gollenbach. Why? William Francis Lee. He's all through both of these books, but he's here live and in person. Bill Lee, good to see you.
Thank you, Bud. Nice state you got here.
Pretty good state.
Yeah, it's pretty.
How about the provinces?
The provinces are nice. I got to play there for 5 years in Moncton and ended up in Sydney Mines almost.
Sydney Mines?
Yeah, I ended up playing up there.
Anybody ever hear of Bill Lee at Sydney Mines?
They know about me now.
Really?
Hit a long home run into a project over there in Waterford, I think it was, and then I had a good time there. I enjoyed my days in the Maritimes.
Did you enjoy your days in the big leagues?
They went by awful fast. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them all, even the time when I got banished to Montreal and found out that bars stayed open till 4 o'clock. The Red Sox sure know how to punish a guy like me, an Irish Catholic.
Huh?
We'll send him up there to the Les Belles Provences and see him take a little of that.
But you had a great year up there in Montreal.
I had a great year. I ran to the ballpark. I had to sober up some way, and I won 16 games, and we were 1 game away from first place. And the Red Sox were mired in the second division. And then my next year in Montreal, we were 1 game away from first place. And then the last year in Montreal, we were 1 game away from first place. We felt a lot like Linus in the Snoopy cartoon. We were Charlie Brown. We never seemed to win it up there. We were bridesmaids, but the Canadians really liked us because we had a lot of heart, that team in Montreal, and they loved us. But out here in the Maritimes, there are more Red Sox fans than there were Expo fans. And I couldn't figure that out. I just didn't know, but it shows that the tradition, the New England tradition, extends all the way up the coast, all the way through St. John, Moncton, Charlottetown, all the way over to Hawkesbury.
What is it about the Maritimes that had fascinated you so much?
It seemed to have been like America was a long time ago. It was slow-paced, it was easygoing, people were friendly. When you stopped by at a person's house, they invited you in, they fed you, they kept you there, they told you stories. And there was no rush or pace to it. And I needed that after my days in Montreal, which were very hectic and under the microscope. And my days in Boston, I thought I was a mature old adult when I was in Boston, and I didn't realize it. I wasn't even mature in Moncton, but I'm not mature now, but I'm getting there. You know, my hair's getting grayer, and I better gain maturity soon, or life may pass me by. But I've had a good time.
You're 10 years in Boston. 3 of those years you won 17 ball games. You know I'm going to ask you this question. Who was the best manager you ever played for?
Rod Dato at the University of Southern California.
Oh, come on. I mean the big leagues.
Well, we won it that all year, College World Series. The best manager I had in the big leagues was Dick Williams, without a doubt.
This was a mean, tough guy.
But he knew baseball, and I respected him. He knew the game. He had no favorites. He didn't play a favorite. He played the game the same way, day one as day. If you got on his list, you got off his list if you did well the next time out. He didn't keep you on it. Zimmer had a doghouse, and as Ferguson Jenkins said...
That's Mr. Manager Don Zimmer?
Yeah, it said Zim had a doghouse, and the only problem with his doghouse, it didn't have a door on it, you know? And it's true, the statistics, we were just talking about that. In Montreal, I was 10-6, lost 4 games in a row, and Dick Williams stuck with me. I ended up winning my last 6. I ended up 16-10, and we missed the World Series by 1 game to Pittsburgh. In '78 with the Red Sox, I was 10-6. They got rid of Carbo. I was upset. I lost 4 games in a row. Zimmer said, we'll win it without Lee. They brought up Sproul, threw me in the bullpen, never to be seen again, and I ended up with a 10-10 record. You know, all they had to do was keep me in the rotation. I would have won my last 6, and we blow the Yankees away, going away. And we're the world champions, and Reggie Jackson doesn't hit the 3 home runs against the Dodgers, and he's a jerk anyway. He didn't deserve to hit it. You know, he wouldn't have made the Hall of Fame, and it would have changed the world. We'd have world peace right now. We wouldn't have the war in the Gulf. Gosh, just because of Zimmer.
What got between you and Zimmer?
Ooh, he's a hitter. I'm a pitcher.
You mean he disliked pitches?
I'll tell you a story. We're playing in Seattle, and all of a sudden on the wire it says Garvey and Don Sutton get into a knockout brawl at Donnybrook, and Zimmer's going, I can't believe that. Sutton's a nice guy. Garvey's a sweetheart. He's the nicest guy in the world. How could those 2 get in a fight? I looked at Zimmer. I said, one's a hitter and one's a pitcher. The twain shall never meet. And he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? You know, like this, and he just walks away. And I should have never used the twain. That word confused him. But you have to see it. Like we said before, the last person that ever got Zimmer out in a ball game was Jim Cott. Threw him a 3-2 backdoor curveball when he was with the Washington Senators. He took it for called third strike. It ended the ball game. The pennant went to Minnesota, and Zimmer never played again in a major league ball game. He hates pitchers. He'll always hate pitchers, even though he has to manage them deep down in his side. Middle infielders that hit less than 250, made too many outs. They don't like pitchers. Deep down inside, in their psyche, they hate pitchers.
Yeah, but you called him a name. I became famous. You made a rodent famous.
I called Billy Martin a no-good dirty rat because he let his daughter rot in a Peruvian jail. I said, Zimmer. They said, well, what's Zimmer? If he's a rat, what's Zimmer? And I said, well, he's fat, got big puffy cheeks. He's a gerbil. And the kid wrote me a letter. He says, Mr. Lee, I think you're mistaken. He says, a gerbil's a very thin creature with long legs. A hamster has the big puffy cheeks. And I'm sorry. I'll say this right now, Zim. I'm sorry. You're a hamster. But that's a lovable, affectionate term. It was not used in a derogatory sense. It was used in a connotation of rodents. If we were talking hawks, I would have called, let's not get into that one. I would have called Billy Martin a shrike, or something that would lay his eggs in another bird's nest and kick out the young and beat them to death with a mallet. And they said, well, what's Don Zimmer? I said, well, he's fat, he's got big puffy cheeks. He's a hoot owl, right? You had to be there.
When you go back to the ballpark now, do you and Zim speak?
I went there the other day, a month ago, and Zim saw me and immediately took a fungo bat and walked to center field and stood out there with his arms crossed. And until I left, he would not come back into the playing field. I should have stayed there the whole game. Would have liked to seen him standing next to Burks. Would have been better than coaching third. Too many men on the field. No. I see, you can see I make levity of everything, but
I know you make levity of everything.
And-
At one time during your career, you sent the Boston writers looking over the state of Maine map. You absented yourself from Fenway Park and said you had gone to the Allagash.
that's right. I wish I had have.
They
What
didn't
a-
know where'd you go?
I know, they figured the Allagash.
They never knew where the Allagash was.
Well, they
I had
wouldn't.
Boston baseball writers calling me, wanting to know where the
Oh, I
hell
bet you they thought I was up with you. I should have been. That was what a nice place, the Allagash, you know.
Well, tell me, where did you go during that when you absented yourself?
I was in my house over in Belmont. The press finally found me, and they demanded that I come out of the house, and they filmed me, and I gave it my power salute to Bernie Carbo, and then Don Zimmer saw me and Haywood Sullivan, and they sent me a telegram to my house saying, you better get back to Fenway Park or we're gonna take desperate action and stuff like that. So I got on my Army fatigues, I ran to the ballpark, I ran 6 miles to the ballpark, I came into Haywood Sullivan's office, and I said, yeah, Haywood, what do you want? And he says, well, you walked out on the ball club, you jumped the ball club. I said, you sold one of your children to Cleveland for half the waiver price. He says, well, you don't make policy, we make policy. You're not running this ball club. And he says, we're gonna fine you $500. And I said, Haywood, I said, why don't you fine me $1,500 and give me the weekend off? He really liked me then.
I bet he liked you.
Then they take me down, and Zim makes fun of me in front of all the players, saying this guy's got no respect for the Red Sox uniform. He hates you guys. And he jumped the ball club, and I went down and I said, yeah, and where's Bernie Carbo? I said, you're going to miss Bernie Carbo. I said, you're going to miss this day till the day you die. And what happened in that year, not one Red Sox pitch hitter drove in a run after Bernie Carbo left. Bob Bailey was up against Gossage in the last game, and Carbo could have come in and pitch hit for him. You could have made a switch right there. And you look back at the records, we did not, it's in the book. That's all I can say. You can look it up. And that was the '78 season, and I was sold or traded on December 7th, a day that will live in infamy with all Red Sox fans.
You had 4 teeth knocked out.
I had 4 teeth knocked out 4 different times.
Now, who did this?
First time, the sidewalk. Second time, my brother's baseball helmet. Third time, Ellie Rodriguez's brother and his cousin on a steel pole. The 4th time, a guy's shoulder in a basketball game. The 5th time, I was riding Melissa on her bike, and she put her feet in the spokes, and I went over and lost my teeth on the sidewalk. But I didn't fumble the girl.
But tell me about Ellie Rodriguez. He was a pretty good battler.
Ellie Rodriguez, I was in Maguas pitching, and I gave up a 3-run homer to Willie Montañez. Willie Montañez hit it. Next hitter up was Rodriguez. I drilled Rodriguez right in the hip, intentionally. Hit him with a slider, not a fastball, because my fastball doesn't hurt. So I hit him with a slider, and he charged the mound, and when he got to the mound, I stayed on the rubber, like you're supposed to do. Stay on the rubber, hold up your glove, and I hit him with a left hook that Cal Irmer says was one of the best left hooks he'd ever seen. I knocked Rodriguez out. Next day in the papers, it says, Mayaguez loses, but Lee el lanzador zurdo, he says, puncharon el former light heavyweight Golden Glove champ, Ellie Rodriguez. So here I am, I knock out the #1 light heavyweight in the state of Puerto Rico, or the province, or the Dominion, or whatever it is. So they jumped me the next day in Caguas and beat me within an inch of my life.
Where were you, getting off a bus?
Got off a bus. It was a weird situation. The bus got bogged down, and then the bus lurched forward, and I had an avenue amongst all these people. And they said, take it, Bill. I took it, and then I got surrounded, and I got pushed into a steel pole. So I was brave to get off the bus first, and dumb. I should have got off later, but then I might have died.
But you hit him again with another pitch.
I hit him in Boston the following year. Hit him with a slider right in the same hip. And he charged the mound, and Montgomery pulled him, and no fight. We didn't get expelled or anything. And then he went to first base, and then I faked home, picked him off of first base. And
you picked him off?
I picked him off for the second out of the inning. He came back in, and he was putting on his uniform, his pads, and I threw a changeup to the next hitter down and in, and he got out in front and hit a line drive into the Brewers dugout and hit Rodriguez right in the chest. And I said, one of my better pitches.
Do you get a Christmas card from him annually?
No, I talk to a lot of guys, Felix Millon, friends of mine, Cheo Cruz, you know, people that I know in Puerto Rico, and they say that Eli Rodriguez is a bad hombre. He's Looney Tunes. I was crazy, but he was nuts.
Listen, before we start taking telephone calls from our viewers out there, tell me about the New England Gray Sox.
Well, thank you. We had a senior league down in Florida which folded because we charged too much for the fans. It was overpriced. It was the wrong time of the year. And the owner of the team, Jim Russick, liked the idea of having all Red Sox together. I was the general manager, and I said, get all Red Sox. I said, you can market it well in New England. People love to see the old Red Sox players. So we decided last year, we played 2 games in Connecticut, and 6,000 fans came to see McAuliffe, me, Fidrich, Stanley, Bill Buckner, and Dalton Jones played third, and we couldn't get a catcher, ex-Red Sox catcher. I probably could get Haywood Sullivan's son.
Mark.
But I got Ozzie Virgil Jr. He catches for us. George Foster, who is not a Red Sox, but he's a New England boy, plays the outfield, and he's a friend of mine. And we had Bobby Bonds play 1 game, but he's not going to play anymore because he doesn't want to play. So we're getting old Red Sox players, and we're touring New England like Summer Stock Theater, and we're playing a game in first one in Nashua, New Hampshire, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Lynn, and after Lynn on Wednesday we're driving up and we're going to spend 3 days in the Bangor area. We're going to play on Stephen King's Field, and we're going to play a collegiate all-star team over at Orono.
At the university.
At the university. We're going to play an elite team, and we'll probably get beat because we're going to be tired, slow. Now, we beat the #1 champs in New England hardball 13-1 last year and 7-1. We've only given up 2 runs. Stanley still throws extremely well. I threw well last year. I had 4 bone chips out. But the New England Gray Sox, we go around. We raise money for local charities. Each ball game, we donate part of the ticket price to the charities. So we're funding amateur baseball in Pittsfield. We're funding the Challenger League of handicap players in the Lynn area. And we haven't picked out a charity for Nashua. In Burlington, Vermont, we're raising money for the Long Trail. Long Trail Ale is giving us all of their beer, and we're selling it all over the ballpark, and the money goes to securing the Long Trail so people can hike for free, you know, on one of the most beautiful trails, part of the northern extension of the Appalachian Trail. And we haven't decided what we're going to do here. You know, Stephen King.
Briefly, what are you doing with your time these days outside of this little baseball skirmish?
I'm going to Boston tomorrow. I'm playing 4 ball games over the weekend, charity ball games. I am running for president under the rhinoceros ticket. I think I can really throw a scare into H. Ross
Well,
Perot.
the way things are going right now, you might win.
I started that. Perot's just he's plagiarizing my platform, you know. And besides that, I'm doing that. I build my own house. I planted a lot of apple trees this spring, and I'm just Johnny Appleseed. People call me up, and I come. And that's the way I've always run my life, and I don't expect to change. And I would love the New England Nissan dealership to give me free mileage because I've got 72,000 miles on my Pathfinder, and it's a year old. And
wow.
I can book.
Well, the other day when I talked to the house, you were in San Francisco, and you've been really, every day's a date.
Every day. I've got 1 weekend free, and that's taken up because I'm coming up on July 4th, and I'm playing against Stephen King's All-Stars, and he challenged me to a ball game, and I accept all challenges. And
So you're going to go pick on the town's leading offer?
Yeah, I'm not going to hit him.
Oh, you're not going to hit him?
No, I don't drill people. I just throw them change-ups and little garbage. I do my Mike Cuellar imitation. Here's a cauliflower. You know, here's a cabbage. You can't hit a cabbage far, you know?
A production of the Maine Public Broadcasting Network.
I love to go a-wandering along the mountain track, and as I go I love to sing my knapsack on my back. Marie,
They say the secret of good wine, some experts insist, is that it needs to be aged properly and appreciated through experience. Likewise, for a rugged Maine river, it can only be appreciated through experience. This is the Kennebec. You'll never know this river until you've felt it, tasted it, and if you do, you'll come to know it in a different way. The Kennebec from a rubber raft can humble a man faster than a rattlesnake. But it radiates warmth, and you can't help but find yourself picked up. John Connolly makes a living outfitting rafters and sending them down a 14-mile gorge, boxed in by steep bluffs, places so deep you need to crane your neck to see the stars. Oh, it's no endurance test, but the thrills are there. Connolly is a strong, hardy young man who'd rather ride rapids and rips in a one-man kayak than in the 12-man rafts he commands through the white water of this course. He operates Eastern River Expeditions out of Greenville, Maine, a frontier village on the foot of Maine's Moosehead Lake, a 40-mile giant of a pool. The river rafting is exciting stuff under Connolly's command. He outfits his people in helmets, specialized life vests, wetsuits, and paddles. Yes, paddles. For this is no spectator sport. Under the guidance of this quiet, sure-footed raft captain, one must do his part if the downstream journey is to be fun. And paddling you must do, and do it hard.
They've got an awful lot of water up there. They're going to be generating pretty heavy this morning, tapering off early afternoon. So we don't know what the water situation is going to be like in early afternoon. So to avoid missing good water, we're going to just go straight on over there, and we're going to put on the river. Now we're going to go over about 24 to 26 miles of logging road, and we'll be taking the van and the bus here. You know, it ought to take about an hour, or just a tad more, depending upon, you know, the bus. No, not that. All right. Now, anybody that wants a wetsuit has a wetsuit, right? Okay, now the water's cold. We're going to be doing a fairly technical run on the gorge. We're going to be pulling over and stopping in a number of places. It's not a particularly warm, sunny day, and the water is cold. So let your conscience be your guide, and if you feel that you'd like a wetsuit, we're all going to wear wetsuits. If you want one, see Mike. If you don't, terrific, and we're just about ready to go here. So if you want to take all of your dry clothes and everything that you want to bring with you and take it on the bus and have a seat, we'll be ready to go.
From the Eastern River's home base at Greenville, the group overland follows a network of old logging roads headed for the river where years before, hardy, adventurous young men like Connolly challenged the raging white currents of the spring floods on loose rafts of virgin timber, guiding them to the mills of the downriver cities. Although the memories of that era have since long faded, the exhilaration experienced by those river drivers lives on in the encounter of these modern rafters. There is little conversation as the bus rumbles on through the woods. There is a strange, quiet mood, apprehension, much like the mood of a football team departing for the stadium for the classic and final game of the season. So, silently the bus moves through the country, rumbling along, finally coming to a stop and the adventure ahead.
Okay, we're going to stop here, and everybody can get suited up for the river. If you have a wetsuit, put it on here. There are two outhouses back in the woods here. There's no M or F on either one of them, so just use either one. Okay, that's a good place to take care of nature's call and get ready to go on the river. Okay, so let's get going here. Okay. Alrighty, folks, they're right back in that direction. Okay, we're in good shape.
always do that. Helps to get the fuzzy effect you think.
Must be a rough place for the camera business.
Uh-oh. Well, you don't want to get the fuzzy effect you think.
John Connolly approaches his trips in planned stages, relaxed, reassuring, and his manner instills confidence in the raft crews as they approach Harris Station Dam, a hydroelectric facility operated by the Central Maine Power Company, which marks the start of the downriver run, a trip of nearly 14 miles, the 4 opening miles on thunderous white water. Rivers are classified 1 through 6, depending on difficulty. Class 1 is like a nice raft ride across a farm pond, like a ride on a makeshift wooden raft, one that perhaps you made on the village mill pond as a kid. Class 6 is nearly impossible. And 3 is the maximum difficulty that's safe for an open canoe. Water and air temperature are additional factors considered when rating the difficulty of a river, as well as remoteness. John Connolly's Eastern River expeditions feature remoteness, a ride through a spectacular vertical wall gorge harboring the Kennebec, reputed to have the biggest and the fastest white water in the east.
By the way, you're being handled until you're back in the boat, and guys, don't take advantage of it.
We've had our briefing now, and now the adventure starts. It's time to climb aboard. Are you ready? Come along.
Okay, let me have some nice steady forward. You two guys up in the front paddle together. Everybody follow them. Let's pick it up, son. Let's pick it up. Looking good now. Looking good. Keep it going. That's...
Hear the young people in this rubber raft, this rubber water wagon. They're screaming at the top of their lungs, delighted, ecstatic, as the Kennebec snaps back at our intrusion.
All ahead! All ahead! All ahead! Keep her going! Keep her going! Back right! Back left! Back left! All ahead! Let's go now! Let's go! Get in here! Let's go! Get...
Our raft captain keeps yelling out, keep paddling, keep paddling. Well, Captain, I'm doing my very best and still holding to the saddle. Keep her on course, Captain. Cruising along downstream, headed for the luncheon table at the Fox. Well, you know, wouldn't be a complete season unless you come down out of Shin Pond, huh?
No.
You got to get you down once a year.
We're glad to hear your voice when you call.
Hadley Coulong is my program guest, and well, very honestly, we don't know what we're going to do we?
Not quite. Not quite, Bud.
It's just like sitting down in front of the cabin and talking. What kind of a fall did you have?
Well, I had a pretty good fall, Bud.
Did you?
Yes, had a nice fall.
How about fishing? Did you do much fishing this year?
Well, I didn't do too much fishing this year, but I see some good fishing that they got up into the park, up into the Fowler ponds, and up in there. They got some good fishing up there.
Doesn't it always amaze you that those little ponds with all that pressure?
I know it.
The slaughter, and
that's right.
Little slaughter, and big slaughter, and fowlers, and the rest of them.
Yeah.
Year in and year out, they still produce fish.
Produce fish, sure do. Yeah. And the tremendous amount of fishermen fishing every year there, you know, and they count on it. The minute the ice goes out, Fowler ponds, high and low, Long Pond, Billfish Pond, then Littlefield Pond.
In all the years you worked at the park, has anybody ever cataloged how many trout ponds there are within the park, within that 200,000 plus acres?
Well, I think they have. Offhand, I couldn't really tell you the figures, but I could take my shoe off and start counting, and there's a good number of them.
Yeah.
There's a good number of trout ponds up in there. The Russell Pond, Six Ponds, Traveler Pond, and yes.
Got to be 50 ponds or so within the park.
Yes.
That produce nothing but wild trout.
Well, nothing but a bunch of spring holes is about all they are, you know, and they're full of fish, and they've been fished there for generations.
How much has it slacked off since you first remember when you went into the park?
You mean fishing?
Yeah, I mean the size of the fish. Have they got smaller, or is it held up pretty good?
Yes, I think since I've been into the park, the fishing has been pretty much the same, but I can recall the first time I fished in the park, that is before it was in the park, into the Fowler ponds. The fish were, you got some pretty good fish, pretty sizable fish, 2.5 pound fish in big Fowler. And if you fished in there, back then it was 12 fish limit. And if you fished in there, you'd have a 30 of fish would be 1.75 pounds, 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. Mm-hmm. And now, about the only time you catch a good fish like that is toward the last of the season. You'll catch I saw one pretty near 3 pounds this past fall that a guy caught. He spends more time fishing there than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And he knows just about the time to be there to fish to catch the big fish. But Billfish Pond, I see 4.5 pound trout. Not many, but I've seen a few of them come out of there. And beautiful trout. That's got
great
natural
color.
shrimps in there, you know.
Natural shrimp?
That's right.
Freshwater shrimp?
Freshwater shrimps. And it's a state trooper. I met a state trooper, a young fellow by the name of Smith. He was fishing in there, he and his boys, and they had this one trout, about 4.5 pounds. It was a beauty. So there's a few good fish.
Oh, sure.
Still left.
But do you know why I dislike Fowler Pond, and I have no desire of going back?
The hill?
No, the hill was navigable.
Yeah.
But I was sleeping there one night on the ground, and we foolishly left our food very close to the tent.
Yeah.
And there got to be more bear in there than anywhere in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Because they all gathered to eat off this fat boy who was sleeping in that tent.
That's right.
And one come over and nuzzled up to the tent and began to paw at it and so forth. And I won't say that I could smell his breath, but he was awful close.
Yeah.
But they stripped us of food.
Oh, sure.
What do you mean, oh, sure?
They do.
Do
they
that?
get more complaints about this and all.
We're in Fowler?
Oh, yes.
Listen, we never threw a light on, another fellow and I. And, but from the tracks, there had to been, I'm going to say 4 or 5 bear in that group.
Yeah.
And what a picnic they had on our groceries.
Yeah.
And we went out of there, a couple of whipped dogs the next day, and hungry till we get into Millinocket.
Yeah.
And of course, I get into Donut Levesque in there, an old donut, And I told him what happened, and he had a greater story to tell me in Millnocket than about the one that I had. But anyway, I never fell in love with Fowler after that.
Yeah.
Boy, there's a lot of bear in there.
Yeah. Well, them bear will stay there around. They'll stay there, and the fishermen will feed them and whatnot, or they'll take what they can get. Then they go over the hill and they go into South Branch. And occasionally we have to take a box trap and go in there and trap them, because they get into the campground and they get to be real pest. And you got a lot of kids there and one thing or another. Now, the last one that they trapped out of South Branch Pond, he got up into the pickup truck. Keith would take and clean out the fire holes and the garbage and one thing or another to take down and throw in the dumpster. And he'd look and the bear would be in the back end of the body. So he'd beat him out of there with a broom. And millions of pictures they took of him, you know.
Yeah.
And finally, he set the trap one night and got him in the box trap. And they took him up Masardis. They took him up where the watershed flows the other way. Because
How
if you
long was it before he got back?
He didn't. No,
He didn't?
won't. But they did take and catch one up there, and they caught him in Trout Brook. They brought him down here below Argyle and let him loose. In a week's time, he was back up there at the dumpster again, South Branch
That's
Pond.
why I thought this bear that they brought to Masardis would...
Now, the watershed going the other way, that will confuse them enough so that we haven't had any repeats by doing it that way.
But they dropped one in Argyle.
Yep, and back he went. Within a week's time, he was back up there to South Branch Pond in the barrel again, because they tag him each time each time they catch him, you know.
Boy, that's a distance overland. That's got to be 40, 50 miles somewhere in there.
That'll give you a pretty good idea how fast they travel.
I'll tell you, they traveled fast.
Yeah.
I was with Bud Cushing.
Yeah.
One year at Harrington Pond. We were fishing down by that sand spit down there.
Yeah.
And we were doing very well. And if Bud's still here and hasn't gone south yet, he can verify this. And we saw this bear coming across Harrington, and Bud said, "You want to chase him?" And I said, "Oh, I don't care, as long as you don't get too close to him." So we pulled up our lines, and I think he had a 9-horse on the canoe and so forth. And it would move pretty good.
Yeah.
But we couldn't gain on that
No,
fella.
they can swim.
And when it hit the beach, you talk about speed into that woods, it just absolutely disappeared.
Yeah.
Just disappeared.
Yeah.
Every Thursday night at 8, Statewide with Angus King and John Greenman presents an in-depth analysis of Maine's hottest issues. Watch the McNeil-Lehrer Report every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. and Statewide every Thursday night at 8 for a look at what's happening in your world here on Maine Public Television.
This is the Maine Public Broadcasting Network, a service of the University of Maine.
Because of the following special program, the McNeil-Lehrer Report, usually seen at this time, will be seen tonight only at 8 p.m.
I love to go a-wandering along the
Live from Little Fitz Pond in East Eddington, it's an outdoor special. Survival with Bud Leavitt. Now let's join Bud and his guests.
Good evening, and what an elegant night. This is summertime in the great state of Maine. Tonight, coming to you live from Fitz Pond at Camp Roosevelt, the home of the Boy Scouts for 6 counties. Well, for 62 years, the Boy Scouts of America have been enjoying this great setting. There's nothing man-made about this tonight. This is the real thing. A background of mountains, canoes, young people, and people who enjoy the very things that make Maine so great in the eyes of the entire world. Tonight, the thrust is going to be on water safety. We're going to tell you just a little bit about the things that can make your fun in the out-of-doors enjoyable. We're going to tell you about some of the technical aspects of being safe on water. You know, this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to give you an opportunity a bit later in the show to phone in and ask your questions of these people. Now, my guest tonight in acting and working with me as co-host is Walter Abbott. If you've been a college football fan for many of these years, you know Walter Abbott was an outstanding football player at the University of Maine. Later in his career, he became the varsity football coach at the university, and still later in life, suddenly he discovered the out-of-doors. We got him out of the moleskins and the cleats, and suddenly the canoe is second nature to him. There's a great concern on this man's part with respect to safety on Maine waters, and rightly so. Each and every year we have upwards of 20 to 25 people, the result of fatalities on water. So if nothing more, in the next hour, we hope to leave you with some kind of a message that'll be indicative of safety afloat, whether it be the use of a canoe, whether it be the correct method of handling a paddle, or whether it be whether your boat is properly equipped for going afloat in Maine. Here we are in mid-July in Maine, with the elegant weather we're enjoying this day and on this evening, and of course there are thousands out there. We hope that perhaps many of you thousands are watching tonight from your cottages, from your homes, and just about anywhere where there is water, canoes, boats, and life jackets. All a part of an integral part of the state of Maine. So I'm going to join my co-host tonight, Walt Abbott, and we're going to talk about the little things that are Maine. First off, without even mentioning the word safety, have you ever seen a more elegant setup for an outdoor show?
It's beautiful, Bud. It's just, you mentioned earlier, it's like being back 40 miles on the Allagash or the St. John. It's a beautiful setting here.
What kind of a season have you had on water?
We've been in many a time. That's why we know a little about safety.
What are we going to do tonight, and what's the message that we hope to get across?
Well, I think that canoeing in the state, Bud, is going to be very popular. It has been over the years, but more and more you drive up the highways and down the highways, and you see a lot of canoes on cars. We have a national championship race coming this year in Maine, so of course a lot of interest in that part of it. But people are out there, and they need training. You have to train properly, just like playing golf or anything else. You need to get the basics down, and this is what we'd like to bring across tonight, is a basic message on safety.
Where do you start on a program like this? Do you start outfitting yourself properly? Do you start from point one on safety equipment? For example, what do you use for life-saving or life-preserving equipment? What are the correct measurements, fits? What are all the technical things that are so important?
I think it's important, first off, to know the law that anyone in a canoe must have a life jacket, should be in the canoe with them, and we feel strongly should be worn, because a life jacket that is not worn is of very little value. So we stress, again, putting the life jacket on prior to getting into the canoe. We have a couple of young folks here. We could demonstrate how to fit a jacket properly and some of the things to look for.
At this point in time, I should tell you that on our staff tonight and working this show, from the University of Maine are Janet Urquhart, as well as John Weed. You'll remember John, he's the handsome guard who played a lot of football at the University of Maine. They represent the University of Maine. There's a little intercollegiate rivalry here, too, because representing Harvard are Becky Weed and Steve Abbott. And then we have a group of Boy Scouts who are going to help us. There's Bobby Nichols, Wayne Lobley, Darren Mahan, of course, and then there's Paul Burchell. And out in the boat, holding a camera with Chuck Halstead at the oars, is a young man named Gary Haynes. So we've gone to great limits tonight to bring you this safety show, with cameras afloat in a boat, wires underwater, and places like that. First, tell me the difference in life jackets.
Well, there are four basically different styles, four different types. And the one that the canoeist is going to be involved with is what they call Type 3 jacket. A Type 3 jacket, people should know, will not support an unconscious person in an upright position. It takes a semi-conscious person in an upright position, so you have to be able to move in order to keep your head above the water. But the thing about a Class 3 jacket is it's comfortable, we hope, and one that is will supply full body protection for the individual wearing it.
When you speak of full body protection, you're talking about hips, you're talking about ribs, you're talking about the neck area. What part of the body?
Well, maybe we can bring our models in. Let's start with this is Steve, and we can see
that's quite a hunk of man. Good to have a man on this show. These little guys, you know. Come over here, honey.
Don't get Janet's heading out there. The thing about Steve here on this jacket, this is an inexpensive jacket. One of the things that's important, it's inexpensive, but there are some flaws we ought to point out, and as Steve turns around, you'll see that his back is completely exposed to possibly injury through rocks or bouncing off of something in the water. Also underneath on the ribs in this area is the same thing.
While we're conducting the physical, Steve, what happened here? A little black and blue mark there.
Yeah, he was beating me at home. I was bad the other night.
This is Walter's son, in case there's any doubt.
Steve, why don't you take that one off now? And Janet? Janet has on a beautiful jacket here. You notice the high visibility, which is very important in the water. So if somebody's in, they've got a problem, the high visibility is important. So quick notification, quick recognition of where they are for the rescue. She has the strong zipper. Down here is the line. Why don't you untie that, Janet, please? And this is the most important part of the jacket, the tie line at the bottom. That must be tied and tied properly. We've lost people in the water, unfortunately, because the jacket has been put on or does not fit properly. Because when you go in, your hands go in the water, your hands go over your head, the jacket tends to flop right up over the hands. So you tie that, Janet, tie that securely, please. And you notice how that knot is a critical part. That life jacket, incidentally, Bud, will float 16 pounds. Now, that doesn't mean that Janet weighs a little more than 16, not much more, Janet. But what we're talking about, that'll float 16 pounds of the human body. A normal average person in the water might weigh 4 or 5 pounds. So it's more important to get the proper size and say, I'll wear a larger jacket to get more flotation. The difference may be a half an ounce or an ounce of flotation in an extra large from a small. So the fit is the most important thing.
All right, let's go from life jackets to equipment that you have right here. Jan, if you step back just one moment, we want you to properly get into a canoe, and we're going to do that for a moment. Okay, we've got paddles here in different shapes and sizes and colors. Why?
Well, this is your basic. This happens to be a Shaw and Tenney paddle right here, and this is your main guide handle, and this is a basic wood paddle. It's good, it's very efficient, expensive, but it's a very trusting paddle, great flexibility, good feel, and this is what the old Maine people love to paddle with, and it's a very good paddle.
Why the fluorescent orange? To locate it?
Well, it's for several reasons, Bud. One is for safety, so that we can give their river signals now. There are standardized river signals for canoeists. And that, if you want to show that, you can see that miles away. Or a long distance over water in a fog or in the dark, you can see that very. And we also use this for instruction purposes at the university.
All right, briefly, what are the signals?
The signals, emergency would be a violent waving over the head. That means a life has been threatened. Somebody's lost underwater, and we hope we never see that signal. We never want to use it. Stop is across the chest, and then run river center, run river left, and run river right, pointing at the banks. And that's basically all the river signals are on a canoe. They don't want to get too many to confuse people.
Is this a uniform signal nationally?
Yes, a national uniform signal system.
I did not mention that you are the only accredited certified instructor by the American Canoe Association in the state. You are the one who certifies other instructors, and I think we have less than 10 in Maine. How many do we have at the university?
We have 6 at the university now, 6 students that have completed the course down at Community College in Massachusetts, in New England Outdoor Center.
Now that I've told you how good you are, tell me, I want you to explain something about the safety kit. You make great emphasis on the safety box and the need for, we didn't go into the other paddles, but we will in a moment. Okay, what do you carry here?
Well, there's certain safety equipment, certain safety items that should be with you. One is a first aid kit. And in the first aid kit, the only thing you need is what you're capable of working with. Some people put a fancy kit in, they don't know how to use it. Take what you know, what you can handle, and put it in your first aid kit in this old ammunition box. Makes excellent, it's float, it's waterproof, and you notice that we use a carabiner to hook it into the canoe with, so if we tip over, we'll have it still with us. And you can put a lot in that.
What do you, as Walter Rabbit, what do you include in here?
Well, number one, we'd want to know the people in the party, who's going to be involved, if they have any special medication that needs to be taken. Anyone with allergic to bee stings, we have a bee sting kit in here, for example. And then the basics, Band-Aids. All we've ever used in 5 years is Band-Aids and blister ointment, and that's basically it.
No compass?
No compass.
What about a jackknife?
Jackknife, yes. You notice I have one on my hip. We think this is very important.
I thought I was going to fool you, but you haven't. Why do you keep a jackknife handy?
Well, there's several reasons. Number one could be an entanglement with a rope in a canoe. And it could be a life or death situation. You have to cut the rope to get away from an entrapment. And the other thing can be, of course, safety and first aid. You can use it on shore. So these are dual purpose in carrying a knife.
All right. Tell me about the, you got a bailing can here, obviously, right? That's a damn poor looking baler. How do you hide it?
That's kind of hard. If you take that small end and bail, it's kind of tough, Bud. But
here comes the jackknife.
The jackknife comes into play. Another roll.
Good old Swiss Army knife, and he can't open it, friends. Everybody in the University of Maine is going to remind you of this for the next 10 years.
But we thought we could show people how to cut this. A lot of people don't realize that we want to cut it at an angle down. Probably cut your shirt, Bud. Is that an important shirt for you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
All right. So by bringing an empty container, using it for other reasons, water or what have you,
there's a bailing
you also
bucket.
have the bailing bucket.
And I think it's important to mention here, don't tie this in with a heavy rope, because that's another piece of rope that can entangle around your feet. Put it in with a carabiner or Velcro it in so you can have it readily available, get out of the way.
Good. All right, you make great emphasis in your safety programs at the university on throwing a line, right?
Correct.
Correct. All right. And you also told me in past conversations that you believe that every state police officer, every officer of any community, game wardens, any people with concern with life should be able to have a throw line, right?
I feel very strongly that way, Bud. And this is what we're talking about here, this type of a throw line.
It's a throw bag, actually, right?
There are two types. This is called a throw line, and this is a throw bag. And the accessibility of this is not good. You have to stop, untie it, untangle it. We've all been through that hassle. And that is one way to do it. But it's much quicker to carry a throw bag. We got this from Bill Stearns in Stillwater.
Did Bill invent this?
No, Bill isn't smart enough for that, but Fern might have. And
you just lost a vote in the November election, but go ahead.
Fern incidentally made these for us, and it's a very simple gadget. We have about 85 feet of rope in there, and it's coiled in, hooked, and this is it. And we're
Suppose
ready to...
you got a bad arm. How far can you throw that? Seriously?
Average people should be able to throw this, but anywhere between 40 and 80 feet, depending upon ability.
Really?
Anyone that's ever bowled or ever been exposed to it can throw it 50, 60, 70 feet easily.
Or is this an underhand toss?
Yes, you throw it exactly like in bowling. You plant your feet exactly as you're going to bowl. One thing, they all come with a loop in the end. Don't ever put that on your hand, because if you do, you can get pulled into the water. Tremendous pull on people sometimes in the water, especially in moving water. So you want to coil about 6 feet of the rope. We'll demonstrate this later on. Step on it so that you won't lose it, because that's very often the case. Hold it, as in bowling. I'm bowling in a left-handed situation, and you come through and you release at about 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10 o'clock. And you call rope as you throw it to alert the people into the water that help is coming.
Boy, that's interesting, really.
Well, I just think it's very quick, it's very safe, and we've had some unfortunate situations.
Has it been put to use? Has there been an actual case where this came into play and saved a life? Without naming places or
we use it all the time, and we've had some people that maybe didn't save lives, but it saved them some hard trips through rough rapids or over some all the time. Sure, we use this. We carry about 6 with us on every trip we go.
Do you?
Yeah, from the university, we carry them.
All right, let's get into the actual demonstrations. Number one, we're going to put the kids in how to mount that canoe correctly, right?
Well, hopefully they can do it without falling in.
All right, I'm sure they will. And with his muscles, he could save the mountain here tonight.
This is one of the hardest. We have more people fall in, but incidentally, falling in, getting in and out of the canoe than we do in the water many times.
I can't understand that, because I fell off a rock in the Penobscot River and went in this year. It was a famous splash, but I've never done it in a canoe, and you're not getting me out there to run that risk either.
We may have to, if these young fellas...
Well, listen, you people, you were just great to be with tonight. Before we leave here on this magnificent summer evening, a July night at Fitz Pond, Camp Roosevelt, amid trees, a natural surrounding, never built in any other television studio anywhere in the world. This was precisely as the master painted it and left it. It's sundown now here at Fitz Pond, all 400 acres. The young people here, the Boy Scouts who are at Camp Roosevelt, soon will be saying goodnight and going back for the evening. In the meantime, we're going to leave you with this thought. We hope that you got a message from tonight's show. We hope the demonstrations by our young people was most effective and that you did enjoy it. We'd love to hear from you. On behalf of Walt Abbott, Mr. Kessler, all the people who participated in the show, and this great staff who put this on, this remote was not an easy matter. I'm Bud Leavitt, wishing you a happy summer night.
Along the mountain track, and as I go, I love to sing. My knapsack on my back.
Tune in for some out-of-this-world fun when The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy premieres on public television. Travel with Earthling Arthur Dent and his alien friend, Ford Prefect, to strange planets and meet some weird Earth creatures. It's all great fun. It's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, airing Fridays at 10 and Saturdays at 4 on MPBN.
Hello, I'm James Galway. I hope you'll be free to join me next time on Live from Lincoln Center for an evening of mostly Mozart. I'll be bringing my gold flute and my Irish tin whistle as well. So you can just bring your good self and we'll have a grand old time.
This is the Maine Public Broadcasting Network, a service of the University of Maine.
Next time on From the Vault, it's classic Maine humor, In the Kitchen with Kendall Morse.
I just forgot to mention that damn thing chased me from the middle of the summer till Christmas.
God, Kendall. Sometimes, you know, I find it awful hard to believe you.
I was just thinking the same thing about you.
That's next time on From the Vault.